Sekenah Tennyson, and for my very first podcast, I decided that I will ask the same questions that will be asked of my guests in the future. This will give us a chance to get to know each other, and you'll know why either I'm showing up in your feed or somebody recommended you to listen to my podcast, what it's all about, who I am. So, again, my name is Sekenah Tennyson. I am the owner of Possibilities Network, and I'm the creator of Dream Life Academy Coaching. And I focus on helping women who want to transition out of employment into entrepreneurship to do so with the least amount of stress possible. A lot of the women that I work with have been in their careers for many years, and now they've decided that they want to go from being a career woman to an entrepreneur, but they don't always know what steps to take to get there. I find that I found when I was deciding to leave my job and start a business that there are a lot of offers that from business coaches to help me to brand or market a service or product. But I didn't know for sure what product or service I wanted to brand or market. I also could not find clarity on how to make a transition from a job into entrepreneurship and keep my creature comforts. Like, I was used to living a certain lifestyle because I had been in a career for a while, and I didn't know, like, how can I keep my finances flowing so that I can maintain this lifestyle and transition to the next experience. So I did a lot of work to figure that out for myself. And at the time, I didn't know it was going to work, but it did. So let me tell you a little bit background about me. So before I got into entrepreneurship and I started working for myself, I have a degree in counseling, and I worked as a vocational rehab counselor, helping people who have disabilities to get jobs. So I have a lot of experience kind of helping people make transitions in their lives when it comes to careers. Um, and I knew even before that I took that job originally that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I had the business name like several years before I left my job, before I even started my job. When I was in grad school, I said, I'm going to own a business one day and I'm going to call it Possibilities Network. Now, why I chose that? I was inspired by Les Brown. I absolutely love Les Brown. And I remember there were so many things that I was interested in having in my life, but I felt like I wasn't sure if it was possible for me. And I remember listening to Les Brown and his speech about, and he would often say in the speech, it's possible, it's possible. And I thought, if you can start out at least believing something is possible, something like, living the kind of life you want to live, living in the kind of neighborhood that you want to live in, having the kind of relationships that you want to have, just believing that it's possible is going to make a difference. Because sometimes we don't think something is possible. And so the decisions we're making are based on thinking that what we want is an impossibility. So they don't tend to be the best decisions. So that's where I got the name from. I started out just thinking, man, what's possible for me? And that felt very empowering. I said, one day I'm going to have a business and I'm going to call it that. And the focus, why it became Possibilities Network, is because I always thought it would be in some way a networking business. I loved connecting with people, and I wanted to help. At the time, I was thinking more of youth and young women make their transition in the world, but it ended up being women. And it ended up being about business. So when I worked in government, I ended up, even though I had a degree in counseling, I have a degree in counseling, I ended up being a sales trainer. So most of the counselors did not want to have that experience, but the agency started training us in sales so that we can go out and make contacts with employers for our clients so that we can get them jobs. And most of the counselors felt like, I don't want to do that. I didn't go to get a degree in counseling so that I can get into sales, which to me, I get it, right? I didn't either. But the thing is, and you never know what experiences you'll have in life. They might be hard, they might be hard work that could help you in the future. But when I was an undergrad, When I was living in Huntsville, Alabama, actually, I spent several breaks from school in the summer going door to door selling books. So I knew what it was like to sell. And I didn't love the door to door aspect of it, but there were times that we would stop by restaurants to sell them cookbooks. We'd stop by other types of stores and sell to them. And I always loved selling to the stores. I always loved selling to the businesses. And that's where I did the best. So the memory of that experience kind of came back to me. And when I had the opportunity to take a training, it was like a trainer program. A guy came from Canada to train us. I took advantage of it. I went all in. It was several weeks, months of training even, and then I became a trainer, and I started doing sales training for the state of Michigan, particularly related to employment for people with disabilities. And I loved it. I absolutely loved working with the businesses. I loved the entire experience. And I remember one day I was actually in a meeting with the governor because this was the governor's initiative. And there were several of us, including employers and other counselors, who enjoyed this process. We were all in a meeting. And I remember feeling so kind of ungrateful that day because I felt like something in me was saying that it's time to go. It's time to go. And you are in someone else's spot. You're taking up somebody else's space because this is not where you're supposed to be. It was I was very nervous about this. And I also just had like a certain amount of guilt because I believe that we should live in the places, the spaces where we're supposed to be. Like when that voice in your mind, in your head says, hey, this is the direction you should go, that we should listen because that's the direction of opportunity. And I'm saying, even if, as I say this, I need this reminder right now. It's good to be reminded why we make our choices. But I felt that and I thought, okay, I'm going to leave in a year. And then that time kept just getting shorter. And I realized, okay, I need to figure out how financially, how am I going to make this transition? And then I need to do it quickly. So I started coming up with strategies to save money, to manage my money well, to get the support that I need, to stop thinking about what I don't want and figure out what I want. Literally, those are the things that I started focusing on. And I made a successful transition and I've never gone back. I had one time where I was tempted to get a job and it was because of fear. We really didn't have financial issues. I was afraid that we would have financial issues. And so I interviewed for a job, but I'm glad I didn't get it. I was so grateful to not be chosen for that job because that would have been bad for me and them. Because my mission, my goal, and my passion is to live the life that I am living now. It's an imperfect life, but it's a good life. And the reason that I get to live it is because somewhere along my journey, I decided to think about what's possible for me, what's possible for me, and get more and more clarity about what I want. I feel like the journey of understanding what you want is a continuous journey because it changes at different stages of life. So I don't feel like I've arrived. And I probably haven't even arrived at the possibilities for my life. But that is how I started. And I remember I did do some business school. Um, and, and I remember in that experience, I had a business idea because we were working through business ideas. And it was to start a mastermind group. And I remember the instructor, the main instructor, saying, nah, you're never going to get anybody to join your group because we can't get people to pay even $10 to join our program. And nobody wants to pay and nobody will show up. But I didn't listen. I went out anyway and I started telling people, hey, this is what I want to do. Many of these people knew me before when I worked in government. They knew I was educated as they were and not educated to be an entrepreneur. They knew my life experiences and they said, I want to learn from you. And so I was able to sell memberships and do it right away. And obviously for a greater price than $10, but it still wasn't to me. It was, well, not just to me. In reality, it was too cheap. It was not a sustainable price at this point. So at the time, I would sell memberships for $25 a month. And then I would have 1 hour sessions every month with my group. And I always think back to that instructor that told me that I couldn't do that, which was just such a small goal. And I thought, really, what he should have told me is that I was going to charge too little. That's what he should have told me, that that model isn't sustainable because you can't afford to live charging that amount. Not that I couldn't do it. So when what do I do? Who am I? Who do I serve? Women like me who have talents, who are capable, you have skills, you have passion, you have something that you want to offer the world. And the way that you do it may not fit in anybody's model of doing things. Maybe it's a hybrid of different models. Maybe it's something new altogether. Maybe it's a perspective that you have that's different than one you've heard before. I believe that every woman, everybody in fact, but specifically women who want to live a certain life, you have a life that you want to live, but your barrier is lack of know-how. I don't believe that we should be stopped from living our experiences that we want because we don't know how to do it. And so my mission is to help women to know, if you want to be an entrepreneur, I'm going to show you how to do it. What I found in my experience, I've done business plans I have more than one business. I've helped other people. I realized that the traditional models often are actually a barrier. And there's only certain circumstances where going the traditional route makes sense. And I find it kind of frustrating because the methods that are given to us to actually go out there and grow a business are often the ones that keep us from doing it. So think about this. If you've ever tried to dip your foot in entrepreneurship, or you know somebody who has, one of the first things they tell you to do is write a business plan. How many people do you know, or are you that person that you tried to write a business plan and you never finished? Maybe you're someone who did write a business plan, and when you got done, how often did you look at that plan? There's only a few circumstances where it really makes sense. It makes sense if you're buying into a franchise, you're buying a business that already exists, you need a certain amount of funding to even start. In those instances, it makes sense to have a business plan. But often, we don't even know what we have to offer. We're not clear about that. And so I help women figure that out. What is it that you want to offer? And what helps me to be able to do that is because I've had like 14 years of experience helping people figure out how to reset their lives or set their lives for the first time, to figure out their careers, to figure out their next step in business, their first step in business. And so I serve people, women who want to live a life that makes them feel free. One of the things that I always say, and I'm reminded of because of my own lived experience, is that life is short, and even a long life is a short life. And I know that there's some philosophical ideas that say think about death. Not that I meditate on that. I can't say that I'm there, but I'm not afraid to look at the reality that our life span is limited. And when it comes to what you do to make your income, what you do on a day-to-day basis, that covers most hours of your life. So you might as well enjoy it. And not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, but I do believe no one should feel limited in their ability to become an entrepreneur because they don't know how to do it because of lack of know-how. And so my mission is to help as many women as I can make that transition into entrepreneurship with success. And so another part of that for me is I didn't hear many people talk about an entrepreneurship. Yes, you can make money. You can make a lot of money. Hey, you will start out making what you make as you learn, and you'll make more and more money. But what's important in that process, at whatever stage you are, is knowing how to manage it. A lot of people they're struggling with money when they're making good money. People are struggling to maintain their business because they're not doing the fundamental things like managing their money well that keeps their business afloat, right? So I encourage women, think about what you want and manage your money well. Don't just think about making it. How are you going to manage it? So that's who I am. That's who I serve. And I kind of told you how I started, which would have been question number 2. How did I get started? I actually got started really helping women transition into business because women started asking me to help them. That's why. I didn't set out and say, hey, I'm going to help women transition into business. My mastermind group was about business, but it was like supporting each other. That's mastermind groups are kind of like that. And then I shifted into coaching. Okay. And so what would I say? Question number 3 is, if you had your ideal client in front of you right now, what advice would you offer them to help them move forward with success? I'm going to give you 3 pieces of advice. And they may seem simple, but they have been the most powerful things that I always go back to in life and business. My very first piece of advice is to think about what you want, not what you don't want. I can tell you that the process of understanding what causes us pain, which causes us disappointment, what we don't want, does help us to get to the point of processing what we want. But the problem is, quite often, we focus on what we don't want when we think we're focusing on what we want. A lot of times our focus is on what we don't want. A lot of times we're stuck in what we're trying to escape. Now, the problem with that when it comes to business, and I'm going to make a very clear connection for you, is that the energy that you bring to the next chapter of your life is kind of how you break it in. Thinking about what we don't want limits. It's like it closes the door, it limits possibilities, it narrows our focus to the negative, and it's like, this is what we don't want. But when you think about what you want, it opens the door, it opens possibilities, it opens opportunity, and it helps us to think of creative possibilities, creative opportunities, seeing things as opportunities that didn't first seem like an opportunity. A lot of problems are opportunities. A lot of problems are not only opportunities to learn, but an opportunity to solve a problem. You'll learn when you're working in business, and if you're in business, you already know that most people create their business offer, they develop it, they think about it, they formulate it because they were solving a problem. They had a problem, they couldn't figure it out, they had focus on that problem, they felt determined to figure it out, and boom, you have a business. And you become so skilled at solving that problem that now you can help other people solve it. You gain insights because of the pain that now you can help others gain, right? But if you're thinking only about the problem instead of the possibilities, you get stuck. A lot of people are stuck in lives that brings them despair because their focus is on a thing that hurts them rather than what can I do with this experience that has cost me so much suffering and let it make me better and let it help me to make somebody else's life better, somebody else's experience better. So focus on what you want, not what you don't want. And for me, one of my ways of doing that is getting quiet, getting still. Sometimes it's just remembering where I'm at in the moment. Okay, this is what I see, this is what I hear, this is what I smell. To neutralize my negative thoughts, now what do I want? Just like if you think about what you want and then there's a possibility that you can have it, it kind of like it's a new kind of energy that you infuse in your life. I want this. Sometimes that's the hardest thing to say because to hope sometimes hurts and it's scary. But wow, like the practice of remembering what we want, especially right now when the world is so full of negativity. So focus on what you want. And if you're not good at it, keep practicing till you get better and better at focusing on what you want, especially in the most tense situations. That is my starting point when I work with people in business because it opens up creativity and it shuts down lack of possibility. Okay. The second piece of advice that I would give anybody who's starting in business is to not think rigidly. In my opinion, the traditional models of business, such as writing a business plan, it was good for a time. I see it now as a barrier to most people because plans can get us in a rigid mindset. So I'm planning this year, like New Year's resolutions. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And you're feeling energized and you're feeling inspired and something and you feels really good when you come up with the plan, right? But things happen. You have a loss. You have conflict that you didn't expect. You have financial stresses you didn't expect. You have a pandemic. All kinds of things happen that are out of our control that affect our plans. And so if you're very rigid about your plan and that this is the plan, like rather than strategic about a goal, then people give up because we feel like we failed because the plan didn't work. I teach people, I encourage people to think in terms of strategy. Goals are great. Strategies help us to be more flexible, right? So I'm going to get to Chicago this weekend so that I can enjoy time away. I like to take a break quite often, and I just have a great time recentering myself. This is what I really do in real life. Well, maybe the route to Chicago is blocked. The route that I normally take is blocked. Am I not going to go to Chicago? Logically, we're going to go, right? If you want to go somewhere, you just take another route. But if that's strategic thinking, basically, my goal is to get to Chicago. Let's say I can't even go at all. There's something that happened that the weather's bad. I live in Michigan and I really can't go at all. Okay, my ultimate goal is to rejuvenate. So I'm not going to abandon my goal because I couldn't go to the original destination or I can't use the route that I was going to use to get there. Now, if I'm focused on a plan rigidly, then I'm forgetting that the goal is just rejuvenation. I can go in the basement, get in my sauna, and rejuvenate. Okay, I have to do it at home, but what can I do here that does the same thing for me? So I teach people to think in terms of strategy because Then, even as you get coaching in business, even as you grow your business, you never want to be 100% dependent on anybody else for your thinking. It's like you're going to learn to think in a way that helps you to keep going. I believe in teaching. I believe that we can grow to learn. Not that we want to learn everything. We don't do that. We let other people help us, right? We let the experts help us. We let people who are good at what they do help us. We go to the doctor. We do all kinds of things. But we can grow so that we can be clear about our path and be confident in the way that we do it because we learn to be strategic. And for me, everything's connected in life and business. You have to learn to be strategic, okay? And not get so stuck in a plan that you're destroyed if your plan didn't work. Because often, at some juncture of your life, things are going to fall apart in some way. Some plan is going to work. Things are going to happen that you didn't expect. But if you think like a strategic person, then you learn to overcome. And the third and last bit of advice that I would give is what I said in the beginning is like that money management piece. People don't talk enough about that in business. It's really easy to manage your money poorly as a business owner because there's so many moving parts. It's easy to feel like you're broke and not realize that you're wasting money. You're leaving money on the table in situations, or you're wasting money on things you don't need. That people do it all the time. I see it all the time. Um, and even if you are currently in your job and you feel like you never have enough money, well, that might not be true. It might be the way that you allocate your money and the way that you think about your money. And I tell people broke is all over the spectrum of income. It's not just people who work jobs that don't pay a lot of money that live and feel broke. There's some people with a lot of things that live the same way, because broke is a mindset, not completely, right? We should pay people well. So I'm not going to get caught up in that. But there's a certain amount of mindset to broke that makes even people with a decent income believe and think and live like they don't have money. And so the third piece of advice that I would advise an entrepreneur, new budding season, is to manage your money well. And if you don't know how to do that, to get some help. So from here, what will happen is that every Thursday, I'll either pop in and talk to you about a topic that's on my mind. We'll have guests that'll come in, and I like talking to people from all walks of life. So you'll meet all kinds of female entrepreneurs. Some of it will be about spirituality, some of it will be about building a business, growing a business, thinking about your mindset, a product, a service that they have. People are all over the spectrum, all kinds of businesses. And I love and believe that it's important to hear from people at all stages of business. Because what I found is that when we get to a certain stage in business, we often forget things that newer entrepreneurs, excuse me, when we get to certain stages in business, we kind of lose sight of what it was like to be as a new entrepreneur and like the lessons. So I think there's a valuable lessons that we can learn at every stage of business, and that we can learn from people at every stage of business and different ways that people think. Business obviously is about making money, or you don't have a business, right? Obviously, it's about making money, but it's not only about making money, in my opinion. It's about creating a life that brings you joy, offering something to the world that makes it better, being able to be courageous. I think this is the best time in history to be in business. That's my opinion. I do. I believe it because of the tools that are available to us, the opportunities that are available to us, the network of people that we can connect with because of social media, and that being creative and doing things differently is not frowned upon. Like, you don't even really have to push against the grain to do it these days. So I encourage you to continue to tune in and follow along with us and learn from us and teach us, send in messages, and make comments on the videos. And I'm so glad that you tune in today. And I look forward to providing more and more content and getting just like into this new groove of podcasting and just having a good time getting to know you and all the people that I'll learn about and meet along the way. I'll see you soon. Bye.